Hey guys and gals, this is going to be my first, this is going to be my introduction to my first story time. It's a real story. I'm out here with my cat Tina, so you might hear her uh, in the audio that I'm going to record. I'm fixing to record the audio for the story time, but this is my intro. There probably won't be any intros to any more productions that will be story time intros. So so just take this one at heart, and this is my message for my story times. I know I'm not the best storyteller in the world. I'm not the best speaker in the world. Some people enjoy listening to me, and I do this for them. And this one here, this story time, I'm doing it for me because it's about my tulpa, Zar'azar. If you don't know what a tulpa is, or a symbiotic entity, you refer to Star Trek episodes or look up tulpa in Wikipedia or in any occult uh, dictionary, occult word dictionary. A tulpa is a spirit or entity that you make up in your mind, or that has attached itself to you, that you perceive attached to you. So this is my story, it's going to be illustrated. So just stick with me here. And I'm using a new. Uh, I'm using. Sorry, it's dark out here, but it's just the way it is. And I'm using a new video editor, so I don't know if I'll be able to overlap how many audio files I'll be able to overlap. So hopefully I'll be able to put some music and some uh, and overlay the pictures, the scrolling pictures, and um, and audio, 2 or 3 audio tracks. Me talking and some. I'm gonna put in some spooky whispering, maybe if I could find some tracks of that, and some music tracks that go along with it. Maybe 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, I don't know. Just depends on how good of one I find and how long the recording is, and how long my recording of the story is. I don't know how long I'm going to take this. So just stick with me, and I'll see you guys on the other side of this production. So have your listening ears on and your eyes open, because uh, this is me. This is how I see reality and how I wound up in this place talking to you uh, at this late hour at night. It's about 2:30 in the morning, my witching hour, where I get up and drink coffee and check the news reports and everything, and make my videos. So this is my production hour. I'm going to make use of it, and hopefully have this video out by noon tomorrow, if not sooner, maybe by 6 a.m. Just depends on how long I babble like I'm babbling now. But I've spent 4 minutes in an introduction. I think that's good enough. 5-minute introduction.
The most merciful
is
thing
good
in the
enough.
world, I think, is the inability of the human mind
On with
to
the show,
correlate
guys.
all its content.
Have fun and enjoy.
We live on a placid island of ignorance in the midst of black seas of infinity, and it was not meant that we should voyage very far. The ossipists have guessed that the awesome grandeur of the cosmic cycle wherein our world and the human race has formed transient incidents. They have hinted at strange survivals in terms that could freeze the blood if not summed up by planned optimism. But it is not from them that there came the single glimpse of forbidden eons that chills me when I think of it. Our story takes place in northwest Arkansas, near a town named Rogers. It was Indian territory. The Paleo Indians lived there, and then the Clovis, and then near modern times, the Caddo, the Quapaw, the Tunica, the Biloxi, the Cherokee Indians lived up here on the Ozark Plateau. Very spiritual Indians, and they had an affinity for springs and cliffs, much like most of the North American Indians did, and streams. Arkansas was named Akansa after Akansa, Indian word meaning downstream place. Now, Rogers area was a kind of a swampy place up here on the plateau with a lot of sycamore trees, big old root systems, and they left mounds everywhere, which could be mistaken for burial mounds if not given the right history. And some of them very well may be burial mounds, as they are left in a place called Searless Prairie up here in the northern part of Rogers. The Trail of Tears ran through this area, through Bentonville, the home of Walmart. Rogers was established May 10th, 1881, when the train arrived in 1830 from people from Tennessee came here and had subsistence farming. They grew tobacco to begin with, and then there were grist mills and lumber mills. Peter Van Winkle started the War Eagle area mill, and in the late 1800s and 1900s there were orchards here. Poultry started in 1930, and in 1962 everyone knows about Sam Walton starting his Walmart business in Rogers. Will Rogers during World War II had benefits here, the Rogers Relief Association, and Will Rogers made the town famous after his name, but it was not named after Will Rogers. I'm pretty sure. I don't believe it was. History on that is kind of sketchy. Some people say it was named after Will Rogers, but the actual history was no, it was not named after Will Rogers. So this story takes place in a place called Monte. Now, it's had other names before during the logging days and the agriculture pre-history days of the Rogers area. But Monte sits down on the Beaver Lake, which is right east of town here, right east of the population center of northwest Arkansas, Rogers, Bentonville, Springdale, and Fayetteville area, and Lowell. On the other side of the lake, the biggest town is Eureka Springs, and that's up northern part of the lake where you get into the, I believe, Bull Shoals or Table Rock. Bull Shoals and then Table Rock, or Table Rock and then Bull Shoals. I can't remember. Anyway, this is story time. But Monte, this place called Monte was named after several different springs down there in the area. And you can do some research on your own and find out more about Monte, but I'll have some pictures here, as you see right here, Monte, and historical Monte. And then I will show some pictures as I get to the story of modern Monte, what it looks like today, and why it's so spooky. But Monte was established in 1901, and it was the 320 acres that Coin Harvey had bought from a man that owned a lot of acreage out there near the springs. And at this time, the lake hadn't gone in. The lake didn't go in until 1964. And in the mid-30s, he turned Monte into a health resort with two hotel two hotel spaces, Oklahoma Row and Missouri Row. And there was a bank down there, and it was a little community. Several people had moved down there, and in 1922 there was a girls camp down there by where Coin Harvey had built his resort, his health resort, modeled after European health resorts. And he was a silver baron, and he ran for president back then. And he lost, of course, and eventually he ran out of money, and the resort crashed. But anyway, he wanted to build a pyramid because he thought the end of the world was coming because of the 1922 stock market crash. I mean, the 1929 stock market crash. So during this time, he was trying to build this pyramid out there, and he built this amphitheater not too far away from Oklahoma Row and Missouri Row. And he had a lagoon that he had dredged out, and that came down off the creek, and then all that water built up and then flowed down another waterway into the White River, which was on down around Horseshoe Bend. There's a big bend in it. I'll show you, as seen here, Horseshoe Bend from aerial view. So during this time of construction of the amphitheater that hosted various things from the girls' camp to plays, and he had when King Tut's tomb was discovered, the Egyptian fanatic and the occultism was ripe throughout America, and so they had Egyptian plays. They had gondolas down there that represented Egyptian boats and stuff, reed boats and things that they played with in the lagoon right next to the amphitheater as plays were going on. And so it's my surmising that there were some shady activities, occult-like activities going on down there. If not Freemasonic activities involved with politics at the time, and then you couple that with the Egyptian rites and some of the authors and people of that time that frequented health resort type spa resorts, So there were several people that probably went down there, authors and whatnot, and we don't know about it really. It wasn't thought of at that time to record such things. Most people didn't keep it in their ledgers. All the ledgers of people staying at these places got burned. I believe most of the history got burned up in fires. So as we get into the story, it is the 1990s, 1996, the year I graduated, and it's a few days after Halloween, and it's mild temperatures. It didn't get cold early that year. It's still camping weather, and I had acquired some acid. This was the year I was on a psychedelic journey. I never ever had a good trip in my life, and but I did try the psychedelic spiritual journey for about a year, and I had several girlfriends during this time of my life, many girlfriends in fact, and at this time I was seeing this girl named Carrie, and on this particular day I had acquired some acid, and we were going to trip, and she liked to hang out with my intellectual friend Christopher. Now, these two got along fairly well and created a nice atmosphere. So to be, fucked up in or whatever. And we decided we would travel from Christopher's house after we dropped, and Christopher didn't do any acid or drink or smoke weed or anything. So we had a little bit of marijuana with us, and we had dropped some acid. I can't remember if I acquired it, if Carrie acquired it, but we went down to Monte from Chris's house in Little Flock, which is north of Rogers. So we drove my Impala. I was uh, I was I was driving a '77, a sky blue four-door Impala at the time, and at the time I didn't have my stereo in this thing. It was just playing 8 tracks. So here we are driving through town, tripping. I'm driving at the time because I'm feeling good, and later I wouldn't be driving, but at the time I was driving and feeling good. The acid was starting to kick in. It was about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. We decided we were going to camp out at Monte, or at least hang out down there for a while. We didn't. We brought blankets and stuff in case it got cold and we wanted to sleep or whatever. It didn't happen to get cold. It was a, a full moon the night before, so the moon was going to be full that night. And anyway, you might hear my cat. She's meowing. Anyway, so we were driving down there, and we always talked about occult things during this time, because I had been into the occult in my youth and did a lot of studying, and at this time was in my drug partying phase, girls and sex, drugs, and rock and roll phase. And so we got down there, and we had some fishing poles. We did some fishing, and we were just hanging out, and it got dark. It got dark on us pretty fast. I had found a rusted old hatchet, and we were talking about the thing in the water. See, there was rumors of a large fish, catfish, or a carp, or something much larger, about the size of a car, a suburban car, that would surface out there in the coves and in the main body of Monte. And at this time, since the 40s, Monte had been it fell apart and lost funding. Coin Harvey died, and his sons couldn't keep it up, and it had been graffitied. The only thing left down there at Monte was the old part of, I believe it was Oklahoma Road. Missouri Road was on over, but I could be mistaken. It could have been Missouri Road. I get them confused. But anyway, the tower part of the honeymoon suite, they called it, the tower part and the winery basement was all that was left, and it was adjacent to the water. So you had open walls of this winery basement, as you can see in these pictures, or I've already showed you. The water was right up next to this winery basement, so if you climbed down there, you could just step right off a fish or whatever. And you go above, there's the tower, which the staircases had been removed long ago to keep people from climbing up it, but that didn't stop Chris from being a monkey and climbing all over the thing. So as it got dark, we moved from the winery section fishing to listening to some music with the radio we had, talking about things, and just tripping a little bit. It was some dirty acid, and we weren't really getting a bunch of visuals off of it or anything, which makes me even more suspect of what I seen later in the morning. So, excuse me. So, as time went on, it got darker and darker. We were entertained by Chris climbing up the various levels and us trying to get to the second, me and Carrie trying to get to the second floor. Well, I believe we had some alcohol that we were drinking on as well, me and Carrie. At this time, I always had marijuana on me. I always had something that's going to fuck you up. And plus, I smoked cigarettes. No, I didn't smoke cigarettes until I was 18. So at this time, I wasn't smoking cigarettes. But Carrie did, which left an awful taste in your mouth. And sex with her was dry. You had to lick it before you stick it. But anyway, enough of that. There was no sex this night because we were with my friend Chris, and he's very prude and disapproved of a public show of affection. Really, he had said of himself that he's like a werewolf, as I had said of myself that I am like a sorcerer or a wizard or a psychologist, as a psychotic psychologist. And so he believed that he had superpowers, in which I believe spiritually he did have some superpowers, as everyone does. But he wasn't messed up, and he was climbing all over the building. And he got up to the top floor, on top of the building, and said there was in chalk was a pentacle up on top of the building, a pentagram. And so we got to talking about things, and we got to talking about alternate realities and the history of Monte as I knew it so well, because at Monte, this was a place where I had spent a lot of my youth, my childhood down there, fishing and swimming with my parents and my family on a houseboat, and then we would go fishing down there. Dad liked to fish every day, and it was just that's what we did. So, and there's an article I'll link. If I could find it again, I'll link it in the description of this video that I want you to read about. It's called Sludge and the Treasure, and this is why I believe I have an innate psychic ability or some sort of remote viewing psychic ability. I wouldn't call it the same psychic ability as some psychics and mediums have, but I have this strange connection with animals, especially cats and horses and dogs, and I affect certain people in a way that I notice, that I notice it, and in my youth I took advantage of some folks situationally, and some ladies, some girls, when I was a teenager, to get what I wanted. Of course, everybody does that, That's how I learned manifestation. But I blame all this on the chemical that was down in the water. And if you understand, I do the research behind that on that chemical. It's research has stated that it can give amongst things, certain health effects and headaches and stuff, but also psychic ability has been correlated with exposure to this. I believe it's a type of aluminum, but it's a cleaning solution that the water company, Beaver Lake Water, cleans their pipes out with at the water treatment facility. several miles away, and that water drains down the waterways and out into the Cove Lagoon, which used to be the lagoon, and on past the the amphitheater and on past the old hotel there into the coves where we used to swim and fish, and we'd eat that fish and we'd swim in that. And it's not a radioactive material or anything, but it does have certain qualities to it. And I blame a lot of this on that. And the mist, the fog that comes up out of the water there, as you see in some of these pictures, a couple of these pictures from Camp Runamuck, which was right up by the tower. But anyway, at this night we had decided we were going to go to sleep, and I'll try and wrap this up real quick. But we had decided we were going to go to sleep, so we climbed up on the second floor, and I guess it had gotten on to be about one or two in the morning, and we all climbed up there, and Carrie was in between me and Chris, and or I was in between Chris and Carrie, and we went to sleep up there for several hours. I woke up startled. These three yellowish entities came through the entryway, and one of them came through the wall, and the other two came through the doorway of the room we were in up there. A big half of the building room. And as I reached up to block them from getting any closer, the one on the left, they mumbled something to each other. I couldn't, in an unintelligible frequency. And the one on the left, which was the one on the right, but to my left, shot in through my arm and into me, which immediately I became possessed. I had never been possessed before in my life. I had had an out-of-body experience before, and this was sort of like it, except I was still conscious, but I was not in control of myself. And the acid had worn off somewhere around midnight that night. It was dirty acid that didn't last as long as conventional, like purple microdot or something that trip you out for 12 hours. This acid didn't have any legs to it. And so I knew I was suffering from the effects of the acid, but I wasn't seeing visuals like that prior to waking up. And this wasn't a visual. This was actually, could feel and hear these things in front of me. And as that one sucked into my body and I changed my consciousness, and the other two retreated back, said something in that frequency as to the effect of was telling the other one goodbye or something, good luck, and retreated back, and I could hear something close like a suction sound close, and I got up, and Chris and Carrie were sound asleep. There wasn't any waking these two up. They had exhausted themselves messing around, playing around the motel and the lake that day, from about 5 to about 2 o'clock in the morning. Or maybe it was like around 7 when we got out there. I don't know. It was dark almost when we started fishing. We didn't fish very long before we started just basically partying. It was a party spot until about 2011 when a guy got stuck in the chimney and they put a fence up around it. Now, I'll get to that here in a second. But anyway, so I got up and I was huffing and puffing and I was possessed. And so, and I was showing you pictures of what I think this thing looked like, and I didn't find out its name until a couple of years later. I didn't know what to call it or if it was even still with me or whatever. But I got up and I and I was pacing around the room, and this must have been close to sunrise, um, because when I went to the window after God knows how long time elapsed of me just being inundated with this presence of this thing and hyperventilating, and I had a cringe on my face, and I felt like I was an animal. I had animal instincts, and so I went to the window and I propped myself up at the door. It was a door, window door, and I didn't have a shirt on. It was mild temperatures, and but it was chilly that morning. So by all means, I should have had a shirt on. But I gotten overheated and I took it off during this episode. And here comes a guy walking down the concrete walkway, which used to be the old hotel log part of the building. It was now the top part of the winery, and looked like a long path walkway about the size of a road, width of a road, and there were of concrete blocks sections, and it went on for 80 feet or so, 100 feet in front of the building to the road where you turned into park. And this guy was carrying a cup of coffee, and I believe smoking a pipe. He was smoking a pipe and a cup of coffee, and he had this dog with him. I cannot remember for the life of me what kind of dog it was, but I think it was a Rottweiler Shepherd mix, something to that effect. Now, there were stories of a demon dog down there. That one night, I actually seen this thing years later after this event. I seen this demon dog down at Monte in the road. It had red glowing eyes, and to this day I get chills. It's one of the things I'm truly scared of is this demon dog, because there's references to the devil being down there with his dog, and that people during the 70s and 60s had used this place as a satanic meeting place and ritual place, and they had opened portals and stuff there, and that's why I was so interested in the place, because during the satanic panic of the 80s, there was a lot of activity down there. It noted, and people had stories and everything. My brother even told me about some things that he had a weird experience a couple of times, but he never thought nothing about it. My brother is real uh, materialistic, and so he never thought any the spiritual thing about seeing weird people down there or anything. But he made note of it, and I asked him. He told me several stories, and his friends had stories, and people I knew at the bowling alley had stories of it. And so when I found out about the history of it, I became infatuated with it, because that was my childhood play place, a fishing hole and swimming hole. My dad tossed me in and taught me how to swim there. And so this guy walks up with the dog, smoking his pipe, and I'm huffing and puffing in the window, and I said something to the effect that I wouldn't come any closer to this guy. I wouldn't come any closer. Just like that, real loud. And he stops, dumps his pipe out, takes a drink of coffee, looks at me, turns, and he had this big brimmed hat on. And I can't remember exactly if he had plaid or some sort of raincoat on, but I could see the steam coming up from his cup of coffee, so he must have lived nearby. And so he turns and walks, and his dog's still staring up, and his dog doesn't make any noise. His dog's still staring up at me. He says, "Come on," and his name, and I can't remember what the name of the dog was. He said, "Come on, boy." And the dog turns real slowly, still looking at me as he's turning, and walks with his master. And to this day, I swear that's that fucking demon dog with the red eyes and red glowing eyes like you've never seen before. I seen his dog one night uh, in the early 2000s. This is 1996, 97ish. During the fall of '96, this happened, and so this was after my dragon encounter I had with the dragons I speak about. That happened in from '93 to '94. So I calmed down a little bit, and that guy had left, and the sun's coming up, and you know I'm calming down just slightly, and I wake them up and I tell them about what happened. Wake Carrie and Chris up, and they were just amazed that they slept through that. And I said, yeah, you guys were under some sort of spell. You didn't wake up. So it was very much like an alien abduction because the two people that were with me after all the noise I had been making didn't wake up and anything like that. And they weren't that intoxicated or anything. Chris was sober, so he should have woke right up. But anyway, we climbed to my Impala, and I made Chris drive. We packed up our blankets and our radio and our fishing poles, and we climbed up in the Impala, and I said, Chris, you better drive because I'm something out there in the middle, in left field. And Carrie was real concerned about me. And so we were driving home and got to my house, and my dad seen that we were freaked out. So he told us that we needed to go before my mother seen us like that and called the police or something, have us all taken to jail for being druggies. But so we take off and we're driving down the. At this time we had picked up Chris's car at my house. He had left his car at my house, and we picked up his car. We got climbed in his car, and we drove down the street. And Carrie had attempted to exercise this thing out of me because she was good at exercising demons and spirits. Um, she had done it for a few people before, and to no avail. To no avail. This thing wasn't coming out of me. This thing was not coming out of me, whatever it was. And it spoke to her, saying some incomprehensible mumbo jumbo. But soon it would learn how to communicate with me when it was conscious. But it spoke to her, and she just drained herself trying to get this thing out of me, and she couldn't do no more. So we went back to my house, and I was feeling a little bit better, but I still needed to rest, and I didn't want my mom to see me. So we went to Chris's house in Little Flock and spent the rest of the day coming off of our night that we had at Monte. And it was a foggy morning down at the lake when we woke up. It was real creepy, and it was really spooky night. But we didn't pay any attention to it because we were having such a good time, and we weren't concerned about anybody coming down there. And there was another time where we had met some crazy guy that was dressed up like the Crow with a sword and everything, and I had collected swords, and I was going to meet him down there again to fight, and he'd gotten picked up by the cops and taken to jail, and his friends met us down there, some weird people from Fayetteville. One of these guys had overalls and no shirt, and there was a girl with him that was a freaky-looking girl. They claimed to be some sort of vampire cult. But anyway, that's a story for another time. Chris went on to be and I'm surprised I let Chris drive because he had a knack for wrecking cars. He he wrecked probably 6 cars, four or 5 cars up to the date where I let him drive, and this is in 12th grade high school. and he had already wrecked 4 cars in a matter of 2 years. So I'm surprised I let him drive, but that's how messed up I was. I let him drive us home. But anyway, Chris went on to join the Air Force, and he was a target marker here at a base during the Iraqi war, during the Gulf, uh, the Afghanistan thing, and everything after the Gulf incident, and 9/11. He was still in, and he got out shortly after the Afghanistan thing going on, and now he's a psychiatric assistant counselor in Lowell here, I believe. He's in Lowell. I haven't spoken with him in several years. Carrie went on to be a stripper. Yes, a pole dancer, exotic dancer, and she worked here for Tony C's, had some businesses. This mobster from Chicago, and bought up some bars and businesses, and we had hung out at his pool halls before, and he got all the pretty girls around the area to open up several strip places here and on the borders in Fayetteville and on the border of Missouri. So she went to work for him, and then later on moved to Texas to make it big time, which I lost track with her off of social media and everything. I tried to find her when social media came out, and to no avail. I don't know where she is. Maybe I'll make an attempt to find her someday. But she was a friend, a good friend, after we had split up and went our separate ways and started seeing other people. But it was kind of, relationships were different back then. It was serious, but when you guys split up, you still remained friends. And in my town, it happened that way with most people. A lot of people got into fights and arguments and always hated each other. But with a lot of my girlfriends, we're still friends to this day. I know it doesn't work out that way with some people, but with everybody. But with me, with a few people, we remain friends and on talking basis whenever we see each other around town and stuff like that. So I hope you enjoyed the story. What I went on later to do was, in my 20s, not too long after this, after the birth of my son, I went on a karaoke and drinking and credit card spending spree, and tried to get the Monte on the historical register. Now, it's on the historical register of places, but it's not in their place to fund to repair the place and keep it up. So I was trying to get that done, and that failed, and I got FBI called on me because I threatened the Corps of Engineers that something might happen to the building, and they thought I said something might happen to the dam. And so the FBI came to my house looking for me when I was out in Eureka area, Beaver Shore, Holiday Island area, living out there. And parents called me and said, the FBI is looking for you. And so I had to explain myself to the FBI at one time. Yeah, I've got FBI numbers, and that's what it's for. Is because of a perceived bomb threat that I supposedly had said about the Beaver Dam. So I'm on record there. But I corrected everything, and hopefully it's in the paperwork that I did not actually say those things, that I said something totally different. So, and then years later, after I had another bar spell, after I went bankrupt and calmed down for a while, I had another manic spell around 2009 into 2013. And so I had moved down there to Camp Runamuck. At This guy was living in the yellow house down there by Monte, where some pictures of my pickup truck and that old car with the steam off the lake is. I got 2 pictures from down there, and I had a camera that I took lots of video with, and had it on his hard drive there, and he threw that computer away later, so all that memory is lost. But we played music down there, and these were the kids. They had to have been just kids when I was a teenager. They were little kids, because I was in my 30s, and these kids were just turning 21, 22, and the guy that lived there, he was a little bit older than me. He was almost 40, and I was 32. So uh, anyway, the kids down there played music, and they told me that they had swam down there, and all these guys had fucking abilities, man, musical abilities, psychic abilities, and I found out at that time about the chemical that was down there when I did some research, and I told them about this, and it reinforced their beliefs that they had special powers. Now, uh, I went on to uh, to move out of there. I lived down there for a couple months. I paid some rent, and a few incidents happened, and I left and can't move back home. And in which about a year later, I got hospitalized a couple of times, and now I've been stable on. Um, and in 2011 is when that guy got stuck in a chimney down there, and then it was not till after that they raised the money to put the fence around it. But they had signs down there that no climbing, because people had been climbing down there at Monte for quite some time, and I had warned the police about it, and I had said, it's a dangerous place, and at night especially is no place to be because of the things that were down there. Was, that what had happened to me and stuff. So, this story's riding on 45 minutes. I think it's a good place to stop. So that leaves us to today, where I'm at now, and I rarely go down there. At the time that I lived down there at the Camp Runamuck with the Lush puppies, here's a picture of the Lush puppies artwork from Melanie drew this, and she's an extremely talented light worker, and so these guys were great. They were great kids, and great guys. But I still talk to a couple of them to this day when I can. But so I spent that time down there taking video, and when they were all gone to work and stuff, I was down with a long magical rope closing portals at the old motel and at the amphitheater. So I did get some portals closed that had remained open. I believe I shut the place down probably about 60% shut down. I don't know if I fully shut it down 100% or not. Probably people came after me and reopened portals and stuff. So there's probably still activity down there. The demon dog might still be down there. Of course, in real dog lives, he would have been dead by now. But, in demon dog years, hell, they don't never die. They just, spirit moves on to another animal when one animal is deceased. So there's plenty of wild dogs and stuff down there in that area. And deer and whatnot could have moved on to a deer or something, But this transdimensional I call it a Zar'azar, a trans-dimensional symbiotic entity, because he remains hibernated most of the time and only comes out to play when I am unconscious or in a blacked out drunk or in an emergency situation where my cognitive functions aren't working. He'll take over and get me out of trouble. This last time he got me out of trouble was last year or two ago, when I got this DUI, when I was messed up on Klonopin and some other things. I won't go into detail about that, but I was pretty much blacked out driving to the store to get a lighter, and blacked out on my way there, got pulled over, woke up in jail, and this Zar'azar kept me out of taking a piss test, kept me out of answering a lot of questions, and answered them for me, and I was unable to. I was blacked out from everything I had done. So that was the last time he had fully taken control of me. He's always in the back of my mind. I think of Zar'azar every day. He's my guardian angel. He's my tulpa. He's an acquired entity. Was forced on me, maybe, but maybe not. Maybe I was down there asking for something like that. Who knows? Who really knows? But I hope you guys enjoyed the story. Getting on about 50 minutes here, 50 minutes to an hour. So I get a good hour-long story time. I know it's not the conventional story you usually hear, and it was all over the place. But give me some leeway. It's my first time going into detail with what happened with Zar'azar and my transdimensional entities. Now, I got to looking the other day. That's why I wanted to make this video real quick. I'll finish up. I got to looking the other day about a yellow entity, because they were yellow entities, and I got to looking on DeviantArt and Bing, and I found these pictures of what they called the Yellow King, or the King in Yellow, or Hathor, or Haster, or Zaster, which sounds like Zar'azar, or Zar'azar, could be. And that's what Zar'azar had told me in previous dealings with him in the past, that his name was to me, conveyed to me, didn't tell me, conveyed to me, because their language is a frequency that's inaudible and can only be heard if your perception's altered. But so Zar'azar was the same name as this Haster character out of H.P. Lovecraft, who got it from this Pierce author that was the benign god of shepherds, and was a king in yellow, had the yellow cloak. And so this went on. H.P. Lovecraft took it and put it in his story of the many cities, of the cities of madness and stuff, about he was just brought up very briefly the name Haster, and then in some other writings that expanded upon that, they call him the King in Yellow and Haster, and some other names that are along with it. I'll list the names in the description of this video, and a link to the Treasure in the Sludge article, which I want you to read. Is an old article, but it goes on to tell you about what kind of chemical is polluting Monte. And after I read that, I went on a crusade to clean the place up and get involved with the Friends of Monte, and I found out that they had long since not been active and nothing could be done about it. There's a Facebook group called Monte Restoration Society that I formed. It's got members of it are some of the guys down there that were at Monte and some other people. But nothing ever got done with the place. There's a fence around it now, and you can go see it. You can go down there and fish or launch your boat from the boat ramp, or I wouldn't recommend swimming unless you wanted psychic abilities. So don't take your kids down there. I mean, well, you could take your kids down there and make them swim, and later on they'll have some psychic abilities. But and then that's scientifically research done on this chemical that's down there. What